At my 70th birthday dinner, my son whispered, "This house will be ours soon, I already changed the deed." The perfect celebration. My name is Margaret Whitmore, and on the night I turned 70, my home in the quiet suburbs of Connecticut glowed like a place untouched by time. Warm light spilled from every window, the garden outside trimmed to perfection, the air inside filled with the scent of roasted chicken, fresh bread, and something sweeter, memories. I had spent 40 years building that house with my late husband, Thomas. Every wall held a story, every corner carried a piece of us. That evening, it held my family. My son Daniel sat across the long oak dining table, his voice filling the room with easy laughter. He had always been charming, the kind of man who could make anyone feel comfortable, but as I watched him that night, there was something else in his expression, something I could not quite name. Beside him, his wife Clara smiled politely, her posture perfect, her eyes observant, as if she were quietly studying everything around her. My granddaughter Lily, sweet and innocent, tapped her fork against her plate, humming to herself, untouched by the undercurrents only time can teach you to feel. I stood at the doorway for a moment before joining them, taking in the scene like a painting I had once dreamed of but never questioned. This was what I had worked for, what I had sacrificed for. A family gathered under one roof, celebrating a life well lived. "Mom, come on, you're the guest of honor," Daniel said, raising his glass slightly, his smile wide, but just a little too practiced. I smiled back and took my seat slowly, my fingers brushing against the polished surface of the table. 70 years, Clara said, tilting her head slightly. "That's quite something." "It is," I replied calmly, meeting her eyes for a brief moment before looking away. Dinner began with soft laughter and familiar stories. Daniel spoke about his work, about opportunities, about the future, as if it was something already within his grasp. He spoke confidently, almost eagerly, and I listened the way I always had, not just to his words, but to what lived beneath them. At one point, Lily reached for my hand, her small fingers warm and trusting. "Grandma, will you always live here?" she asked. I smiled and squeezed her hand gently. "As long as I can, my dear." Daniel laughed lightly, cutting into his meal. "Oh, she's not going anywhere anytime soon," he said quickly, almost too quickly, and for the first time that night, something inside me shifted. It was small, almost invisible, but it was there. I looked at him, but he avoided my eyes, focusing instead on his plate as if nothing had been said at all. The conversation continued, but I began to notice things I hadn't before. Clara asking about the age of the house, the size of the land, the structure, the value hidden behind casual curiosity. Daniel mentioning ideas, renovations, expansions, changes that had never been discussed with me. It was subtle, almost harmless on the surface, but repetition has a way of revealing intention. Still, I kept my composure. This was my birthday, and I would not let unease take it from me. "Let's make a toast," Daniel said suddenly, standing up with his glass raised high. The room fell quiet, all attention shifting to him. "To my mother," he began, smiling warmly. "For everything she's done, for this beautiful home, and for many more years ahead." The words were perfect, the kind people expect to hear, the kind that sound like love. Glasses lifted, smiles followed, and I raised mine as well. "To family," I said softly. We drank, and for a moment, everything looked exactly as it should. But I have lived long enough to know that appearances can be carefully arranged, like the table before me, beautiful, but not always honest. As the evening moved forward, laughter grew louder, but something else grew with it. A quiet weight I could not ignore. I watched Daniel more closely now, The way he leaned back in his chair as if he belonged not just at the table, but to the house itself. The way Clara's eyes moved, not admiring, but measuring. And then that feeling returned, stronger this time, whispering something I could not yet fully understand, but could no longer ignore. I stood slowly, offering a polite smile. "Excuse me for a moment," I said. No one questioned it. I walked down the hallway, each step steady, each creak of the wooden floor beneath me familiar and grounding. This house had always been my safe place, my truth, and yet that night, it felt like it was trying to tell me something. I paused just before the kitchen, just out of sight, when I heard Daniel's voice, lower now, different. "It's only a matter of time," he said. Clara responded softly, "You're sure?" There was a pause, and in that silence, something inside me prepared itself for what came next. Something that would change the way I saw my own family forever. If this story has already drawn you in, make sure you hit the subscribe button, like this video, and share it with someone who loves powerful stories like this, and tell me in the comments where you are watching from, because what I ate the whisper that changed everything. I stood still in the hallway, my hand resting lightly against the wall as if the house itself was holding me upright. And in that quiet space, just beyond the kitchen, I listened to my son's voice in a way I never had before. Not as a mother hearing her child, but as a woman hearing the truth. "It's only a matter of time," Daniel repeated, his tone low, controlled, certain in a way that made my chest tighten. Clara spoke again, softer but sharper. "You've seen the documents, right?" "She hasn't changed anything." There was a short pause, the kind that carries meaning, and then Daniel let out a quiet breath. "No, she hasn't. The house is still in her name, but when the time comes, it transfers to me. Everything is exactly how it should be." My fingers curled slightly against the wall as those words settled into me, not like a shock, but like a slow, cold understanding. They weren't hoping for my future, they were waiting for my ending. Clara's voice came again, this time with a faint edge of impatience. "We just need to be careful. We can't rush anything. But Daniel, this house, this land, it's too valuable to lose." Lose? The word echoed in my mind. Not cherish, not protect, not remember. Lose? As if I were already gone, as if my life had already been reduced to paperwork and timing. Daniel gave a small, almost amused laugh. "Relax. She trusts me. She always has. Besides, at her age," he didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. The silence that followed said everything he chose not to say out loud. At her age, 70, waiting, counting. I closed my eyes for a brief moment, not out of weakness, but to steady the wave of realization that rose inside me. This was not care. This was not love. This was expectation. I had spent years believing I was raising a son who would value what we built, who would understand the meaning behind every sacrifice, every late night, every decision made to give him a future. But standing there, hidden in my own home, I realized something I had never allowed myself to consider. I had given him everything, except boundaries. Clara spoke again, her voice quieter now, almost cautious. "Just make sure she doesn't change anything. People get unpredictable when they get older. Unpredictable." I almost smiled at that word, but there was no humor in it. Only clarity. Because in that moment, I understood something they did not. They thought they knew the ending of my story. They thought time was on their side. They thought I was still the same woman who trusted without question. They were wrong. I stepped back slowly, careful not to make a sound, my heart steady now, not racing, not breaking, just clear. The kind of clarity that comes when illusion finally falls away and truth stands in its place, undeniable. For a few seconds, I remained in the hallway, listening to the faint clinking of glasses, the low murmur of voices, the ordinary sounds of a family gathering that had just become something else entirely. Then I straightened my shoulders and walked back toward the dining room. When I entered, nothing had changed on the surface. Daniel was smiling again, leaning back in his chair as if he had not just spoken about my life like it was a waiting period. Clara glanced up at me briefly, her expression composed, unreadable. Lily looked up and smiled brightly. "Grandma, come back, we saved you dessert." I returned her smile, warm and genuine, because she was the only one in that room untouched by what I had just heard. "Thank you, sweetheart," I said, taking my seat as if everything was still normal. And in that moment, I made a decision. I would not confront them. Not yet. I would not raise my voice or reveal what I knew. Because anger is loud, but strategy is quiet. And I had just learned that silence could be far more powerful than anything I could say at that table. "Everything all right, Mom?" Daniel asked, his tone casual, almost rehearsed again. I met his eyes this time, holding his gaze just long enough to make him shift slightly in his chair. "Yes," I said calmly. "Everything is perfectly fine." And for the first time that night, those words carried a meaning only I understood. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of polite conversation and careful observation. I watched them now with new eyes, seeing not just who they were, but what they intended. Every glance, every word, every small gesture fit into a pattern I could no longer ignore. They believed they were waiting for time to take its course. They believed I was unaware. They believed the future was already decided. But as I sat there, listening, watching, understanding, I realized something that changed everything. The future is never decided by those who wait. It is decided by those who act. And that night, without saying a single word, I chose to act. If this story is opening your eyes and pulling you deeper into the truth behind family, trust, and hidden intentions, make sure you hit the subscribe button, like this video, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And tell me in the comments where you are watching from, because what I planned next, they never saw coming. Next was something no mother is ever meant to hear. He quiet investigation the morning after my 70th birthday arrived with a calm that felt almost unnatural, as if the world outside my window had decided to remain gentle while something inside me had shifted forever. And as I stood in my kitchen holding a cup of coffee that had long gone cold, I realized I was no longer the same woman who had set that dinner table the night before. Because once you hear the truth, you cannot return to comfort. You can only move forward with clarity, and that morning, clarity became my strength, not my fear. I moved through the house slowly, not out of weakness, but with intention, my eyes tracing every familiar detail, the photographs on the walls, the worn edges of furniture, the soft creak of the wooden floor beneath my feet, and for the first time in years, I looked at my home not just as a place of memory, but as something that needed protection, not from strangers, but from those who believed they already owned it in waiting, and that thought did not break me, it sharpened me. By mid-morning, I picked up the phone and called the one man I trusted to deal with truth, not emotion, my lawyer, Mr. Jonathan Reeves, a man who had handled my family's legal matters for years, steady, precise, and impossible to mislead, and when his voice came through the line, calm and professional, I spoke just as calmly, "Jonathan, I need to review my documents," and there was a pause on the other end, not of confusion, but of understanding, as if he sensed that this was not a casual request. "Of course, Margaret," he replied, "would you like to come in today?" "Yes," I said firmly, because delay was no longer something I could afford. The drive to his office felt different that day, every street familiar yet distant, as if I was seeing my own life from outside for the first time, and when I arrived, I did not hesitate. I walked in with quiet purpose, my steps steady, my mind clear, and when Jonathan greeted me, his expression softened slightly. But he did not ask unnecessary questions. He simply led me into his office, closed the door, and sat across from me. Ready? Tell me what you need, he said, and I looked at him, not as a client, but as a woman who had just discovered the truth about her own family. I want to know exactly what happens to my house, I said, my voice calm but firm, and he nodded, reaching for the file that held years of decisions I had made without ever imagining they would be questioned. He opened the documents and began to explain, clearly, carefully, every detail laid out in legal certainty, and as he spoke, I listened with a focus I had never needed before, absorbing every word, every clause, every condition, until the full picture stood in front of me without illusion, and what I saw confirmed what I had heard the night before. My son was not guessing, he was expecting, because everything had been arranged in a way that made his future seem guaranteed. As it stands, Jonathan said, looking directly at me, your property will transfer to Daniel under the current structure, unless you decide to make changes, and there it was. Simple, direct, and entirely within my control, and for a moment, I said nothing, not because I was uncertain, but because I was measuring the weight of what I now understood. This was not just about property, this was about intention, about trust, about the quiet difference between love and entitlement. And if I wanted to change it, I asked, my eyes steady on his, and he did not hesitate. You can, he replied, completely, and at any time, as long as you are of sound mind, which you clearly are, and a faint, almost knowing smile touched his lips, not out of amusement, but respect, because he could see it. I was not confused. I was not emotional. I was decisive. I leaned back slightly in my chair, the pieces aligning in my mind, not in anger, but in strategy, because I understood something now that my son did not. Time does not belong to those who wait for it. It belongs to those who use it wisely, and for years, I had allowed things to remain as they were because I believed in family, but belief without awareness can become blindness, and I was no longer blind. I want options, I said, my voice quiet but unshakable, and Jonathan nodded, turning the pages, outlining possibilities, trusts, conditions, transfers, protections, each one a different path, each one a different future. And as he spoke, I realized something that settled deep within me like certainty. I was not losing anything. I was reclaiming control. When I left his office, the air felt different, not lighter, but clearer, as if the world had sharpened along with my understanding, and as I drove home, I no longer saw the road as routine. I saw it as a path forward, one that I would choose, not one that would be chosen for me. And when I stepped back into my house, I paused once more, not in hesitation, but in recognition. This was still my home, still my life, still my decision. That afternoon, Daniel called, his voice casual, almost cheerful. Hey Mom, just checking in, everything okay after last night? And I smiled slightly, though he could not see it, because I now understood the difference between concern and performance. Everything is fine, I replied calmly, and this time, the truth of those words belonged entirely to me, because everything was fine, not because nothing had happened, but because I now knew exactly what I was going to do next. If this chapter is opening your eyes and pulling you deeper into a story of truth, power, and quiet strength, make sure you hit the subscribe button, like this video, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And tell me in the comments where you are watching from, because what I decided next would change everything they thought they knew. The deed is changed the next morning arrived with a quiet certainty that felt stronger than any anger I could have held on to, and as I stood by the window watching the early light stretch across the garden my husband once loved, I understood something clearly. This was no longer about what my son had said or what he expected. This was about what I would allow. And for the first time in a very long time, I chose not to allow anything that disrespected the life I had built. I dressed carefully, not out of habit, but with purpose, selecting a simple navy coat, steady shoes, and the same calm expression I had worn the night before. because strength does not always need to announce itself. Sometimes it moves quietly, signing papers that change everything without raising a single voice. When I arrived at Jonathan Reeves' office, he was ready, the documents neatly arranged, the path already clear, and as I sat across from him, I felt no hesitation, no doubt, only clarity. "Are you certain about this?" he asked, not to question me, but to honor the weight of the decision, and I met his eyes without wavering. "I am," I replied, "because certainty is not loud, it is steady." He nodded and began to explain each document once more, every clause, every condition, every detail that would ensure my wishes were protected not just now, but long after I was gone, and this time, I listened not as someone reacting, but as someone choosing, understanding fully that this was not an act of revenge, but an act of truth. The house would no longer pass to Daniel as he expected. Instead, it would be placed into a protected trust, secured in a way that removed entitlement and replaced it with accountability. And at the heart of that decision was Lily, my granddaughter, whose innocence reminded me of what family should feel like, not calculated, not impatient, but genuine. The trust would ensure that the home remained preserved, not sold, not taken, not claimed by assumption, but respected, and any benefit from it would come with conditions rooted in care, not greed. Once this is signed, Jonathan said calmly, everything changes immediately, and I allowed myself a small breath, not because I was unsure, but because I recognized the finality of what I was about to do. Then I picked up the pen and signed my name, Margaret Whitmore, steady and clear, and in that single motion, I closed one chapter of quiet trust and opened another of deliberate control. There was no dramatic sound, no visible shift in the world around me, but something had changed, something firm and unshakable, because the future my son believed was guaranteed no longer existed. When I left the office, I did not feel heavy, I felt grounded, as if I had stepped back into my own life fully aware of its direction, and as I drove home, I realized that power is not about confrontation, it is about preparation, about making decisions before others realize they need to react. The house greeted me the same way it always had, quiet, familiar, unchanged on the surface, but I knew better now, because beneath that stillness, everything was different. That afternoon, Daniel stopped by unexpectedly, his energy easy, his smile confident, as if nothing in the world had shifted. "Hey Mom," he said, walking in without hesitation, looking around as though the space already belonged to him in some unspoken way. "Just thought I'd check in, see how you're doing." I watched him for a moment, really watched him, not as a mother blinded by love, but as a woman who finally saw clearly, and I smiled, calm and composed. "I'm doing very well," I said, and for the first time. Those words carried a quiet strength he could not read. He nodded, glancing around the room again. "Good, good. This place is really something, you know," he added casually, his hand brushing against the back of a chair, as if testing ownership without realizing it. "It always has been," I replied gently, my voice steady, my meaning deeper than he understood. He stayed for a short while, speaking about plans, about ideas, about the future he still believed was waiting for him, and I listened without interruption, because sometimes the most powerful position is not correcting someone, but allowing them to remain certain until the truth reveals itself on its own. When he finally left, I stood in the quiet of my home once again, the silence no longer heavy, but strong, and I allowed myself a small, knowing smile, not out of satisfaction, but out of clarity, because everything that needed to be done had already been done. They were still waiting for time to give them what they wanted, but I had already taken time, and turned it into something else entirely. Something they would not see until it was far too late. If this chapter is showing you the power of quiet decisions and real control, make sure you hit the subscribe button, like this video, and share it with someone who needs to hear the story, and tell me in the comments where you are watching from, because what happens next will leave no room for misunderstanding. The final reveal, the day of the reveal, arrived quietly, without drama, without warning. Just a calm afternoon that carried more truth than any storm ever could, and as I sat in my living room waiting, I felt something I had not felt in days, not fear, not anger, but control. The kind that comes when you have already made your decision and no one else knows it yet. And when the door opened and Daniel walked in with Clara beside him, both dressed neatly, both carrying that same quiet confidence, I had come to recognize. I knew they were still living in the future they believed was already theirs. Mom, you said you wanted to see us. Daniel asked, his tone casual but curious, as he stepped further into the house, looking around as though confirming something he already owned in his mind. Yes, I said calmly, gesturing for them to sit, my voice steady, my posture relaxed, because power does not rush, it waits. Clara sat beside him, her hands folded neatly, her eyes already scanning the room, alert, observant, calculating as always. Is everything all right? She asked, her voice soft but careful, and I allowed a small smile to form, not warm, not cold, just certain. Everything is exactly as it should be, I replied, and for a brief moment, silence settled between us, the kind of silence that carries weight even when no one understands it yet. Then there was a knock at the door, and without hesitation, I stood and opened it, welcoming Jonathan Reeves inside, his presence calm, professional, and undeniable, and the moment Daniel saw him, something shifted, not fear, not yet, but awareness. Mom, what's going on? He asked, his confidence beginning to thin just slightly, and I returned to my seat slowly, folding my hands in my lap. I thought it was time we all had clarity, I said simply, and Jonathan stepped forward, placing a folder neatly on the table before us, his movements precise, deliberate, leaving no room for confusion. Daniel let out a small laugh, trying to steady himself. Clarity about what? He asked, though his eyes had already begun to change, searching, questioning, realizing. Jonathan opened the folder and spoke in a clear, even tone. Mrs. Whitmore has made legal changes regarding the ownership and future of this property, he said, and just like that, the air in the room shifted completely. Daniel's smile faded, replaced by something sharper, something uncertain. What changes? He asked quickly, leaning forward now, his earlier confidence slipping further away. I looked at him, not with anger, not with disappointment, but with truth. The house will not be transferred to you, I said calmly, each word placed exactly where it needed to be, and for a moment, he did not react, as if his mind refused to accept what it had just heard. That doesn't make sense, he said, shaking his head slightly. It was always supposed to come to me. Supposed to, I repeated quietly, letting the words settle between us, because expectation is not ownership, and belief is not entitlement. Clara spoke next, her voice tighter now. Then where is it going? She asked, no longer hiding the edge beneath her calm. Jonathan answered before I needed to. The property has been placed into a protected trust, he said, with specific conditions that ensure it cannot be claimed, sold, or controlled without meeting those terms, and I watched as the realization began to take hold, not all at once, but piece by piece, breaking apart the future they had already imagined. And who benefits from this trust? Daniel asked, his voice lower now, controlled, but no longer confident. I held his gaze steadily. Someone who understands what this home means, I said, my voice calm but firm. Lily. The room fell silent, heavy and complete, and for the first time, there was no illusion left to hold on to. You're giving it to a child? Clara asked, unable to hide her disbelief. No, I replied gently. I'm protecting it from those who see it as an opportunity instead of a responsibility. Daniel stood abruptly, pacing a step forward, his composure breaking. So that's it. After everything, you just cut me out, he said, his voice rising, not in strength, but in frustration. I remained seated, calm, steady, because this moment was not about reacting, it was about revealing.
Aren't we supposed to go to the daycare?
No, Daniel, I said softly, you removed yourself the moment you stopped seeing me as your mother and started seeing me as time standing in your way, and the truth of that landed harder than anything else I could have said, because it was not anger, it was clarity. He stopped moving, his expression caught between denial and understanding, and for a moment, he had no words, because deep down, he knew. You were waiting for this house, I continued, my voice quiet, but unshakable, but I was watching your heart, and that was the moment everything settled, not loudly, not dramatically, but completely. Jonathan closed the folder, his job done, and I stood slowly, looking at both of them one last time, not with resentment, but with finality, because some lessons are not taught with words, they are lived with consequences. I built this life with love, I said, and I will not leave it behind for greed, and with that, there was nothing more to explain. The truth had been spoken, the decision had been made, and the future they once believed in had quietly disappeared the moment I chose to take control of it myself. If this story has moved you and shown you the power of clarity, strength, and knowing your worth, make sure you hit the subscribe button, like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and drop a comment telling me where you are watching from, because stories like this remind us that sometimes the strongest voice is the one that speaks last.